Welcome. This is Bringing Your Museum or Library to Virtual Audiences, Part 1. And I am Susan Mark, Outreach Librarian with the Wyoming State Library. And so glad to have so many of you here. We've got a lot of people here today. And wanted to introduce to you our presenters. We have Megan Smith. She is from the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. She's their K-12 curriculum and digital specialist. And she's worked there 14 years, has a passion to inspire and empower K-12 audiences. And she's also a published author of children's nonfiction books. And then we have Carrie Dickerson. She's also at the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. She's the museum educator. And she's enjoyed working there for the past 5 years, teaching and interacting with students and families through both virtual and in-person programs. And with that, I am going to hand off to the two of them. This may take just a minute. And Megan, you can unmute yourself and show yourselves.
All right. Well, good morning and good afternoon, too, for some of you on the East Coast. We're so excited to be spending about 45 minutes or so with you today. My name is Megan Smith.
I'm Carrie Dickerson.
And we are going to lead you through some of the fun things that we've been doing at the center through the years, virtually and digitally. And then also talking a little bit about how we kind of ramp that up in response to COVID-19 and the pandemic. So we've got quite a bit we're going to cover. Some of the stuff we're going to tease you a little bit about because we're not going to get into the nuts and bolts too much today. We're going to get into those nuts and bolts and how to kind of build these experiences and what tools to use on this coming Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. So that's our little plug for part 2 of what we're going to do today. So what we'd like to do now is share our PowerPoint with you. Don't worry, we don't have a lot of bullet points. Carrie and I are really visual people, so we've got videos, we got photos, and we're just gonna try and engage you as much as possible. We may even throw questions out at you, and feel free to just kind of respond to yourself, but we're real interactive people as we talk. So we're gonna go ahead and share our PowerPoint with you. Yep. All right, so just a little bit about the Buffalo Bill Center of the West, especially for those of you who are not from Wyoming. It looks like we've got Georgia, Texas, Colorado, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. I'm sure we have some other states represented too, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out to those individual states. The Buffalo Bill Center of the West is in Cody, Wyoming, and we are considered a gateway community to Yellowstone National Park, which is in the northwest corner of Wyoming. We're about 50 miles or so from Yellowstone National Park. Cody's about a town of 10,000 people, and we have this amazing museum, actually center with 5 museums under one roof, dedicated to the story of the American West. So we tell the story of the natural history of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, which we are a part of here in Cody. We tell the story of Buffalo Bill and kind of give context to that time when he was alive in history. Buffalo Bill actually helped to start the town of Cody, so that is why we are called the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. We tell the story of the Northern Plains Indian tribes, both historically and today, what their lives are like today. We also have a beautiful art museum, our Whitney Western Art Museum. That was actually the first museum on our complex on site here, that was built in 1959. And then we also have a firearms museum that's one of the largest collections in the world. So we have a lot to work with. It's an amazing on-site experience. Most people say they need the 2-day admission to get through it. But because of where we are in rural Wyoming, over the last several years, we've been working really hard to think about how we can reach outside our walls to a broader audience. And my job in particular is how to do that for schools. We get about 5,000 students a year that visit us on site, mostly from Wyoming and Montana. Obviously, that changed a lot this spring. We anticipate that's going to be really different this fall as well. So we had some programs in place that we were able to ramp up and will continue to ramp up to meet that K-12 audience. Oops, hold on a second. We're just going to change a slide here. There we go. One of these experiences that we offer are virtual field trips. And we started these virtual field trips actually quite a while ago in May of 2013. And we started it kind of thinking, well, this is a way to try and reach beyond our walls. We didn't really know what we were doing. It was pretty new in the field. We got connected with Skype in the classroom before it was owned by Microsoft. It was just kind of this real small group of people. And it kind of took on a life of its own. And so what we want to do and what's important to us is to help museums and libraries to think about how they can offer experiences like this. We happen to do it through our partner Skype in the Classroom. They're an incredible partner, and we'll talk more about them later and why they've been integral to our success. But when we started, we really thought about, okay, what do we do at the museum with school kids that we can easily translate to the virtual world? Now, these virtual field trips are live. They are not video recordings. They are interactive. We're talking to the kids are talking to us. And this is just a little kind of collage of some of the fun we've had over the last, 7 years. Now, it became a priority for our board and for our staff here to really impact as many kids around the world as we can. But what we really want to stress with you today, and then again on Friday, is that you can go as big or as small as you want to with something like this. And just wanted to pop this slide on here because it really gets at the why of what we do. It's not just about us. Yes, our numbers are great, but it's not just about that. It's about what are teachers and students getting from these experiences in meeting standards and supplementing what they're doing in the classroom. And these are just a couple examples of photos that we've gotten back, everything from thank you notes to students relating our ecosystem to their ecosystem where they live. For example, we do not have javelinas or armadillos where we live in the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem. So this is kind of fun feedback, and it's also for us, it helps us to see that what we're doing really is helping in the classroom. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of that in a little bit. Just a little brief overview of kind of our impact in the last 7 years. This shows our impact in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So we've been to all 50 states. We've been to most of the provinces. I don't think we've been to New Brunswick. Yeah, no, I don't think so. But we have also traveled the world doing this, and we have traveled to over 50 different countries, almost all of the continents. I'm sure you can imagine which one we haven't reached yet. And we're at about probably 130 students, 130,000 students that we've impacted and Skypes with. But again, we went big. We went really big. We had a donor that supported this program almost since day one. But as we talk to you today and talk to you on Friday, we want to help you realize how you can do this at your library or your museum really without that funding. How you can use some inexpensive electronic tools to help you get there, and then use your existing resources, collections, books to do something like this.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk quickly about what kind of lessons we offer, and then I'm going to do a little bit of sample lesson, kind of a combination sample lesson, so you can see an overview of what we do with our students. So this page right here is from our center website, and this is our Skype in the Classroom page. I'm going to go ahead and click on it just to see if we can actually pop up our website right there. No, it didn't work. So
Try switching it.
let's see.
There you go. Go down to Skype Classroom.
There we go. Let's see if that works for you. I'm not sure. Okay, there it's loading. All right, so this is our website that actually shows our Skype in the Classroom programs, our 4 established lessons that we have currently. And this is just some information about each of these. That quick view we had in the slide has all the details of each lesson here on our website. We have a Do You See Me? Cultural Perspectives in Western American Art. This one is geared for older students, usually middle school to high school. However, we have done younger students and as well as students in the classroom. We've done homeschool groups, we've done library programs and senior centers as well with each and every one of these lessons. As educators here at the museum, we're able to adjust our content and vocabulary accordingly for each lesson and what we need for the participants of those lessons. So while this one is geared more towards older students, we have been able to go down a little bit in level. Our most popular lesson is probably our Amazing Animal Adaptations. This is a lesson that talks about how animals survive in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem habitats that we have here. And this gives you a great idea as well as some of the things on our website. Not only can you click on this button that says register for the lesson, you can also get additional resources for in the classroom if you're doing this as a classroom project. There are things to do before and after the lesson, and all of that information is right here on the website. Another of our most popular lessons is the Stories and Culture of Plains Indians and the Buffalo. I'd say the animals and the Plains Indian lesson are our 2 #1 lessons, and our grade levels tend to be elementary, usually 3rd to 5th is the most common, but again, it can be preschool all the way up through college and adult that we've done a lot of these programs with, just adjusting the content. And our final lesson that we do is the Trappers, Traders, and Trailblazers. That is all about the mountain men here of this Rocky Mountain region. Now, the thing that each of these has in common is that we are interacting with students during the lesson, as Megan said. We are interacting with whoever we are on with, not only just telling you about the information of the lesson, but we're asking questions, getting response and feedback during the lesson as well. So I am going to actually give a little bit of a quick kind of combination lesson where we're going to do this stories and cultures of the Plains Indians, as well as the animal adaptations lesson, kind of all thrown together. So to start with, I'm just going to kind of tell you what it's like when we start introducing ourselves to the participants. So hi everyone, I am Carrie. We are together today. I'm joining you in your classroom from the Buffalo Bills Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming. And if you don't know where that is, we're going to take a look at a map in a little bit, but we also just picture where the Rocky Mountains are. And today, since we're going to talk about the Plains Indian people, I want you to think of the Plains area in North America as well. So to give you an idea of the Plains, just imagine this in your head. From around the Mississippi River over to the Rocky Mountains, from around Texas, Mexico, up into Canada. That's a huge chunk in the middle of North America, right? Well, the Plains Indian people have lived in this area for thousands of years. And we talk about them as a group because of their relationship to one animal, the buffalo. So let's think about culture and how Plains people each have their own culture according to their band or their tribe, but also share the culture of the buffalo. Now, I'm going to stop again and I'm going to tell you, we would then talk about culture. I would ask the students what they think the word culture means, give some examples of things that are different between cultures, and students are shouting out those answers the whole time for me. We take 4, 5, 6 answers, and then I tell them we can learn about culture through stories. And this is one of the things that has to do with standards in literacy. We actually share a story from the Lakota culture just through screen share like this. read the story with the students, ask what they've learned about the culture and things that they can pick up from reading that story together. And one of those things has to do with the story that we talk about, the buffalo skull specifically. And since we're going to talk about the buffalo and its importance to the Plains culture, not only do we need to know about the skull and how it's sacred to Plains cultures, but all the other things about buffalo and how the people use the buffalo and why they use the buffalo. And to do that, we actually need to move into a little bit of video to learn about the buffalo themselves. So as Plains people, they wouldn't have just gone and started hunting buffalo. They think about what they need to know about buffalo. So here's an example of the next part of our talk where we have a little bit of screen share. Again, we would have done the screen share with that story so we could read it together. Talk about the story, then move back to learning about the buffalo or the bison. Talk about why the bison were important, where they were found, and what they would need to do to hunt the bison or the buffalo. So this goes on for a couple minutes. I'm not going to keep doing that. I'm just going to show you a question I might ask the students after that is, how do you think the Plains people would have hunted the buffalo? Well, of course, everybody has ideas about the bow and arrow. So here's a great example of that Cheyenne bow and case and quiver with the bow and arrows. You would see maybe how they would have hunted by sneaking up on the buffalo in disguise. You can see these two men dressed up as wolves, disguising themselves to sneak up on members of that buffalo herd for hunting. And then maybe an example of how they might use buffalo hides. So here's a little bit of video, a couple images that we share with the students, and then we go back to that kind of live hands-on thing again. I'm going to stop for a second there and just turn back on the camera so that you can see a couple more items that we might use. So this particular lesson, we have a lot of reproduction artifacts, things that have been made by Plains people for us to share through tours here on site or here on Skype. And one of the really cool things that we have is a buffalo bladder. Now, my question to students would be, what do you think this is? A lot of people don't have any idea. And then when I say it's a bladder used for water, we get a lot of oohs and, oh, that's gross. But we talk about then how that would have been used, how it would have been cleaned out, how it's a perfect container for holding lots and lots of water to carry across the plains when there might not be as much water available as you'd hope. So here's a great item to take a look at, the buffalo bladder. And think about the Plains people traveling from place to place. They need to carry all their belongings. So here is another great example of one of our hands-on reproduction items. And this is a parfleche or a suitcase that could be used. So we have about 10 or 15 items for this particular lesson that we share with the students, get them thinking about how they might be used, what they would be used for, and talk a little bit about how that ties into the buffalo culture and how the people would use the buffalo. We do the same kind of idea, the same setup for the trappers lesson. We start with that interaction at the beginning, a little bit of screen share some items that the mountain men would have used. And with the animal adaptations lesson, we kind of switch it up a bit. So instead of having hands-on things that we show right here, we actually can go on a tour in the museum using a tablet. We have an iPad. It's really great. We do the same kind of introduction, meet the students, talk, share a little bit of our screen so that we can actually talk about the ecosystem here, talk about animal adaptations and what those are, and then we're able to switch to our iPad and take an actual tour through the museum. So to do that, I did a little bit of video recording for our webinar here just to make it a little more smooth. But this would actually be live in the museum, again, interacting with the students. Hi everyone, we are now in the Dickerson Natural History Museum. Let's start our tour with a quick look at the habitats of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, all shown on one mountain. Here we can see that one mountain with each of the...
All right, hold on a second, guys.
Habitats starting at the top.
Okay, hold on. All right.
Hi everyone,
There we go.
welcome to the Natural History Museum. We'll start our tour with a quick look at the habitats of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, all shown on one mountain. Here we can see that one mountain with each of those habitats, starting at the top with the alpine environment, down into the mountain forest, then the mountain meadow, and at the bottom, the plains basin or desert environment. Now the museum is set up this way as well, top to bottom, alpine to plains basin. And we are going to take our tour through the museum, learning about some of the animals of each environment and how they survive through both physical and behavioral adaptations. In the alpine environment, there are lots of scrubby bushes, big boulders, loose rocks, and steep cliffs that make it tough to travel around. And the weather up here can be pretty extreme as well. In the winter, temperatures can reach -30 degrees Fahrenheit or below, and the snow gets really deep, 12 feet or more. To get an idea of how deep that is, imagine one of your teachers standing on the other shoulders. It would be deeper than they are tall. So animals have to have some pretty amazing adaptations for living up here. The bighorn sheep is a great example of an alpine animal with lots of physical and behavioral adaptations to survive. Let's start with one of those physical adaptations for walking around in this rough landscape. Bighorn sheep have hooves for their feet. Now, as we look in there, you can see the bottom right beneath that brown fur, that black hoof. And hooves on a sheep have kind of a soft, almost spongy material on the bottom that helps them stick or cling to the rock. That way they can run around up here, jump off of the boulders, hang on to the cliff edges pretty easily. But it's not just those hooves that are a great physical adaptation for walking around in this landscape. They actually have really great grippy toes. So let's take a look at the skeleton of a bighorn sheep and the toes that are beneath those hooves. Check out those toes, 2 long toes. And they can move those toes just like we move our 2 fingers. I want you guys to try that for me. Everyone, take your first 2 fingers and practice grabbing a hold of your shirt or a pencil. You can grip pretty well. Well, the sheep also can grip really well by moving those toes around and grabbing a hold of the cliff edge. Now, that's just one of their physical adaptations for being in this mountaintop environment. They also have some pretty great fur that protects their body year-round. This fur is made up of hollow hair. We saw some pretty neat animals in the alpine habitat. Now let's make our way down the mountain to the mountain forest and meet one of Yellowstone's most famous animals. These are gray wolves or timber wolves. And wolves are pretty different than the animals we've met so far. Wolves are carnivores and predators. You can tell me what it means to be a carnivore. That's right, they eat meat. And a predator is an animal that hunts other animals. So to be able to be a good hunter, wolves have some great physical and behavioral adaptations. They can see, hear, and smell really well to track their prey. They have huge feet with webbing or skin between the toes that helps them run through snow, just like snowshoes. But even with great physical adaptations, it's actually the wolf's behavior of living in a group that makes them our top predators. What's a group of wolves called, everyone? A pack. Hi, everyone. Okay, so that was just a quick example again of going through the museum. But what happens if we aren't on site as well? So when we were not able to be here at the museum a few months ago, or even right now while we're at the museum, because of needing to wear masks in public and for safety, we actually can't be out there walking around with our masks down doing a tour. So we have these really amazing 360-degree photos that put you right in the museum in a tour just through the photo that we can zoom in and out. So you can get close, far away, look at all of those adaptations that we talk about as we're walking through, right through the photos as well. You can get even a closer look, almost a better look sometimes with these photos that you can zoom in so nicely. And that kind of gives you a great look at a combination of what we might do for our lessons.
Okay, so just switching gears a little bit. So those are existing things that we've been doing. We were able, as Carrie said, to really nicely transition those virtual field trips, especially as a lot of students, most students were learning from home. And we use multiple platforms, and we do that all the time, everything from Zoom to Microsoft Teams to Skype. We'll get into those little details on Friday. We'll get into details how we got those 360 photos, things like that. So this is more of an overview today. But what we want to do is finish up talking about how we then looked at our other existing resources as a museum in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. One thing that we thought was really important was not just looking at schools, but really trying to help families as well, right? Because all of a sudden, all the kids are home, parents are becoming teachers, you know, everything was new for everyone. So we wanted to help as much as we could. And we're really working on that this summer as well, since we don't really know what school and life is going to look like for the rest of this year. One of the things we're working on, and we're really going to dive into this on Friday, is Carrie and I and the rest of our team are working really hard now to take our existing guided tours that we have on site for students and converting them to virtual field trips. And one of those includes another Plains Indian lesson. This is a picture just from our Plains Indian Museum of a fantastic exhibit called our Dyke collection. And we'll walk you through on Friday how we're developing that, how we sat down and talked about what's important, how we develop a script, how we decide what resources we're going to use, whether we're going to be in the museum with an iPad or whether we are going to be here in our studio. So that's just a little teaser of what's to come. I'm just keeping an eye on the time because I want to make sure that we leave time to answer any questions that you might have. But I do want to stress that we are doing other things at the center to meet needs, not just virtual field trips. One of the things that we started in the spring and will continue to do is something called Clues for Your Classroom, resources for students and teachers. And these are everything from quick little lessons with content, you know, Pony Express, the fastest mail service around. Here's a little bit about the mail service, about Pony Express. Here are some collection objects we have, but here are some questions that students and teachers can think about to answer questions. We're building this right now, and it is our hope this fall, this will be organized a little bit differently. This will be organized according to kind of the major content areas and also skill areas for students. So, you know, we'll have social studies, we'll have science, we'll have STEM, we'll have literacy. And then within those, we'll have some subcategories that fit the standards so that teachers have a place to go to find resources, to find primary sources and how to use them in their classroom when they're teaching to a specific standard. We're hoping this will really be helpful for teachers as they start to adopt the new Indian education for all standards that are happening here in Wyoming. I'm not going to go to that website because we're going to dive into that again on Friday, and I just want to be aware of time, but that's one thing that we're working on. This is something that we launched back in April. Looks like it's going to show it. Nope, hold on a second. Let me just switch my application view. And again, this is something we'll share on Friday. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Microsoft Sway. It's something that comes with most Office 365 subscriptions if your organization has that. And it's just an incredibly fun, easy way to build resources. So this is something that we started a couple years ago, and for different reasons, it kind of got put on a back burner, but it was really the perfect time to build this in the spring. We're hoping to do this for each of our habitats in the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem. And we launched using our 360 photos, using some drone footage. we built this curriculum essentially to explore the greater Yellowstone ecosystem with content, with ways to kind of assess and have kids answer questions. This is just kind of an introduction to it. The bear throughout this curriculum is a signal to students that there's some questions and some things for them to think about. So we've included videos about that giant super volcano in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, drone footage, drone videos that kind of immerses students, and not just students, families. This is available to whoever, into this amazing landscape, because Carrie and I say it all the time, there's no place like it on Earth. And this really helps to give an idea about it. So that's kind of how this was built. I do want to, here's just kind of an example of how those questions and assessment work. So this is kind of a think about it. Close your eyes and picture a land with steepy rock slopes and rolling plateaus. You are so high up that trees can't even grow here. It even snows here in the summer, yet living things thrive here. How do you think animals and plants survive in this harsh place? Adaptations. And that's kind of what we build on through the rest of this activity. I encourage you to check it out. It was hopefully this fall, and we're working on it right now. We'll have the other habitats as well. All right, we're going to switch back really quickly. All right, here we go. To talk about some of the other things we've been doing. Because we're such a large museum, we actually have several social media accounts with different audiences. So we have our main kind of center, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram feeds. The education department has our own Facebook feed, and then each of our museums do as well, because we each have these niche audiences. We of course share things that are going to apply to some of our audiences, but I wanted to share with you some of the things that we challenged ourselves with. You know, prior to COVID-19, we had this Facebook page, and I'll be completely honest, we forgot about it a lot of the time. And this really forced us to take a look at it, build our audience, and think about how we could serve families. And that's basically what our Facebook page is for. We also use Twitter. Teachers, believe it or not, are on Twitter all the time. So that's how we share out a lot of our curriculum, Skype in the classroom things. So this is a way for us to highlight what we're doing on site during COVID-19, like socially distancing outside and making kites, and then flying them on our powwow grounds. One of our colleagues spends time in this beautiful ecosystem we live in, creating geology videos that are, they're interesting to a broad audience. They're targeted for 4th and 5th grade standards, but again, it's not just for students. We did an art camp this summer for K through 2nd grade, and I think also 3rd and 5th, did we go up as well? And that was, we did that Zoom style. We'd never done that before, but we thought, hey, let's try it. Don't be afraid to use your interns too. You know, we get guilty of kind of getting caught up in, well, this is what we do and we're going to keep doing it. You know, we try and think out the box, but it's hard sometimes. Well, we've got some high school interns from our youth advisory board who are creating some social media posts for us this summer, just some quick activities to get out there as well. And all they're using is their iPod, their iPhone, they're using iMovie and then we're throwing it up there on Facebook. So there are a lot, you know, again, like we said in the beginning, you can go big, you can go little for a lot of these different things. We mentioned Skype in the Classroom. We'll talk more about them on Friday. They're an incredible partner. They're owned by Microsoft. One of the things that makes them incredible is that they have this built-in teacher audience. We've never had to spend a marketing dollar on Skype in the Classroom providing our virtual field trips because of that. This April, we did a live Skype in the Classroom event, actually the inaugural one that they launched. Now, it was great. We reached over 1,000 people, but it was similar to this. We couldn't interact with them. So that was kind of a unique experience as well. Again, we want to plug a little bit of what we're doing on Friday. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts. How do we build virtual field trips? How do we build resources? How do we get them on the website? How do we work with Skype in the Classroom and their website to launch it? How do teachers register for it? you know, what equipment should we use? And then I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other online content we did and how we build it. So I think what we'd like to do now is, it looks like we still have 10 minutes left. We're going to come on back, put our camera on, and I think Susan is going to share some questions that you might have put on the chat or the Q&A during. There we go. Okay. So yeah, put your questions in the Q&A panel. I know the chat section's not working, and we'll get to as many questions. And please feel free to contact us as well at the Center of the West. We're happy to help in any way that we can.
Shall I read the questions?
Yes, please.
Okay, we have one so far. Please feel free to put your questions in the question box. First one is, how do you deal with visitors in the museum while doing the tour? Do you have issues with photo bombing and the like?
Yeah, sometimes.
And we don't care, to be honest with you, just because we are in a museum where visitors come. Visitors usually, sometimes they follow us around. They're like, oh, what are they teaching about? So hey, then we're impacting more people. Most people are really respectful. They think it's pretty interesting what we're doing. We just recently built a Skype Studio that we're sitting in, which is pretty exciting because then that way we're not bothering the public. Although with the iPad, we're still going in there. Yeah, there's public there. I will say that we're really quiet in the wintertime. We're closed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So in the winter, when we're doing the bulk of our Skype lessons, there aren't any visitors here either. So great question. We just don't let that bother us, I don't think.
No, and as Megan said, a lot of times people kind of follow us along if we're touring through. And before we were in this room, we were just outside of here, out in the public as well. And we'd often, especially in May and September, have small little crowds listening to our lessons while we were on with students. Lots of questions from them after as well to take back to people they know that might be interested in doing it.
Yeah. And one thing to point out is we converted an existing space for our studio, but you know, you can easily set something up even in an office if you need to. Again, we had a lot of support behind this to do that. You don't need all of that to get this done. You really need, if you've got a computer with a webcam, you're good to go. And again, we'll get into that on Friday.
How many staff do classes?
How many staff do classes? That's a great question. So, Carrie does a lot of lessons, especially our early morning ones. She also registers all of those schools. Thank God for Carrie. Let's see. So you, me, George, Emily. There's 4 of us who do this regularly.
We have some days as many as 10 lessons a day because we do have there's a couple of us that's what we're dedicated to do is virtual. With Megan, she has so many other things to do, so she does virtual field trips with us when she's available and when needed. But there are 2 of us that's specifically what we do.
Yeah.
Okay, how many people does it take to do each program?
1. You know, it's interesting. When we first started, we team did it. Like, we all actually, like this. Yeah. We felt like we were newscasters and be like, Carrie, good night to you, Carrie. But as we felt more comfortable with it, it's just one person. You know, we work hard when we hire new people, that they are problem solvers and they think on their feet and they don't get flustered easily, because we all know that technology is wonderful, but every once in a while it behaves in a way we don't want it to. And we just kind of roll with it. And again, we'll talk about that on Friday and some of the kind of things to help to deal with that. But yeah, one person to deliver it. Carrie truly is scheduling all those lessons though, communicating with the teachers, getting everything set up for us so that person delivering the lesson is set up for success. Yeah, but again, when we're doing 10 lessons a day, we need somebody who's dedicated to that. If you decided to do this and only do, you know, a couple lessons a week, you wouldn't need near that commitment, staff commitment.
And that's another thing that we can talk about more on Friday is especially through Skype in the Classroom. I can't speak to other platforms, but Skype in the Classroom allows you to set your dates and times available. And if you know that you only are available on Tuesdays from 2 to 4, you can set that, and then teachers will, or families or whoever will only register for the times that you've set. So you don't become overwhelmed if you don't have the time available.
Yep.
Okay, is this the platform you use, or do you use Zoom, Google, etc.?
We actually GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar is not something we've generally used. It's not something that's used by most schools. Most schools will use Skype when they are in the classroom because it's as easy as clicking a button and it connects us, and that's it. Same with Google Meet or Zoom or Microsoft Teams. We use any of those that works best for the school. If it's not going to be Skype, especially now when students are connecting from home, Skype's a little more difficult just because it's better for an in-classroom situation. But we have the teachers send us a link to their classroom meeting, and we join them through their established protocols for their classroom meeting. And fortunately, all of the programs seem to be fairly similar enough that even if things are in a little bit different position or you have a little different title, you can figure them out really quickly and easily. And it's very easy to use any of the platforms pretty much interchangeably.
Yeah, and again, that is another thing that I feel like we're just teasing you today. We're like, we can do this, but wait till Friday. But yeah, we will dive into that on Friday. They're not that hard to use. They really aren't once you get used to them.
Okay, next question is, what have you found the most challenging while transitioning in-person programs to virtual programs, and what was easier than expected?
Ooh, so I'm going to go with easier than expected. From my experience, when we started, one thing we were worried about was that interactivity, because, you know, being museum and library educators, we're in informal education. It's our job to engage students, to get them talking, to use hands-on objects. And we did not want to sacrifice that. So when we went into it, we thought, well, we will try this, but if it doesn't work that way, then this might not work for us. We were amazed at how seamless the communication really is between us and the students. Students are so comfortable with technology. They don't, you know, they feel so comfortable talking in front of a camera. Half the time, they're the ones helping teachers to problem solve on their end.
And it really is like we are in their classroom or they are here with us. I mean, it really feels like we are in person the entire time with them.
Yeah, it really does. And something we learned this summer in doing our art Zoom camp, we worked with this wonderful artist who we've known for years. And what she was able to do with students in a half hour, took her 2 hours on site. So yes, there's that trade-off of being one-on-one or really talking to one student who has that question. But I would say it exceeded my expectations and how we in that different.
Yeah, and I'm just amazed at how well it actually works pretty much all the time. Unless there's some kind of technological issue, it's really just like in-person tours or field trips.
And I'd say the biggest challenge over the years is getting used to changing technology. You know, we do try and make it our business to kind of be ahead or at least aware of what's happening next in technology. When we started the technology, it was there, but it wasn't great. So that was the biggest challenge for us, whereas on site, you know, you get your hands on bags, you go on a tour and you sit on the floor with the kid and you're ready to go. There was more of that learning curve with technology, which you will have too, because it's a different way to communicate. But once you get that covered, you're going to forget you're even on camera because you're going to be looking at those students and communicating with them. So yeah, probably a longer answer than you wanted.
Okay, next question is, do you ever bring in experts from the field, for example, indigenous people, and I can't read this, geologists, I think?
great question. Actually, we're getting ready to do that, especially with some teacher development here in Wyoming. Those of you who are Wyoming education professionals, I'm sure know that Wyoming has newly adopted Indian Education for All standards. We have a Native American educator here who is working on putting together teacher modules and also creating new experiences for students to help meet those standards. And it is our goal to use tribal members both through videos, but also hopefully live as well. So we're kind of working on that. We also have amazing curators here who help with any of the content that we might need. Whoop.
Okay, next question. I am intrigued with the geology of Clark's Fork of the Yellowstone River.
Yeah.
Our hikes and driving tours. That's
Say that again.
a lot of normal climbs and driving tours of the area.
Are there driving tours of the area? I would say, and I don't know if you guys can still see us because our computer just did something kind of funky. So hold on a second here. Maybe if
We can still see you.
Okay, good. Good, good. Okay, there we go. So our colleague, George Miller, who has been really integral in the development of our virtual field trip program, he is our digital educator. And he has been working this summer to put YouTube videos together on the geology of Bighorn Basin, including the Clark's Fork Canyon, including, he has done the Wind Rivers, he's done the Tetons, he's done the Beartooth, the Bighorns, the Absarokas. He's going to cover the basin. So it's not exactly a driving tour, but it's a really nice overview of not just the geology, but how the geology influences kind of the ecology as well of the area. So there may be driving tours out there that other people have developed,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
but none that we are aware of. There's some great books out there too. The geology roadside books are amazing. And as you drive along, okay, what is that feature? And tells you a little bit about the geology. I think they've been around a long time, but they're still pretty pertinent.
I think that looks like it for the questions. Does anybody else have any questions? Is there anything, Carrie and Megan, you'd like to add?
I feel like we threw a lot at them.
Yeah.
So join us Friday and we'll throw more at you. No, we'll really kind of dive into how we do it. And really, truly, we are here to help because we didn't have that when we started. You know, we laugh at educators steal from each other because, you know, why fix it if it's not broke? So we want our experiences to help you. So feel free to contact us. We Skype with people all the time to kind of go into details as well. So yeah, thank you. And thank you to Susan and the Wyoming Library System for inviting us to do this.
Thank you both. I'm going to come back to my screen now.
We'll mute us and our camera off.
Thanks.
Thank you. See you Friday.
Okay, and I just wanted to conclude and say that if you have questions, you're welcome to contact me. We do have part 2 of this on Friday. If you want to register for that, the events are all on Facebook. And if you are in a Wyoming museum and need some assistance to get a Zoom subscription or a iPad to do virtual tours or anything like that, please contact me because we have an opportunity for you. So I want to thank you all for your time and attendance. And with that, we are going to conclude.